Welcome to the History Reviewed channel, where we analyze the lies and deceptions of history. This is just a little interim video before you get the next one. The next one is going to be about the really important topics that we need to hit. And the next topic that we're going to attack is demoralization. So we're on a bit of a roll in a sort of a psychological way, looking at a lot of psychology angles for things, and I have much to say on this matter. In this video, I just want to touch on the topic of health, because I've had health problems in the past, and health problems that have come from my regular habit of burning the candle at both ends, doing something at work during the day and doing something after hours, and having too few hours in the day to do anything. So I find myself always under pressure, I don't get enough sleep, and I've got stress and all that sort of stuff. So this video is going to be a couple of points. I'm going to make a couple of simple and rather strange points, and it's meant more for you to regard it as just some ideas to ponder and investigate where you think it is relevant for yourself, because it might give you some input and some ideas that don't seem to be common knowledge. I put that in quotes. Maybe some of it is common knowledge, but for me a lot of it came as something completely new that I'd never come across. And what I'm about to tell you is the result of lots of chats, many of them with doctors or specialists that I knew or went to, as well as some of my friends who have dug into health issues. One of my friends is a bodybuilder, and he's very much into health, and he's very interested in scientific literature. And he's also been saying a lot of things to me which match up with what my doctors have said and so forth. So this is just a bit of a quick one to throw some ideas at you. Some of them may be new to you, but some might not be. So here goes. The first and most important one was I found myself getting ill quite often and going to the doctor quite often, and the doctor couldn't come up with any particular reason why I was getting ill quite often. So I went to a specialist who had saved my life back in 2005 with an operation. And I suffer from a lot of sinus and allergy problems. Now this specialist has in recent years moved on. He's actually scaled his whole practice down because he's now a lecturer at a university. And he was telling me about the studies that he had begun while he was in his practice. So this guy knows quite a few things. He's actually a German. And this guy told me a couple of things on a number of occasions which have helped me a lot. When I said to him that I think I'm getting ill far too often, he had a look at me and he said to me, all white people suffer from a vitamin D deficiency. Now, here we live in sunny South Africa, where 90 to 95% of the days we have a nice, bright, shining sun. But because we spend so much time at work and being indoors, we don't get enough vitamin D. And you get vitamin D from the sun. However, a complication when you are closer to the tropics is that the sun can give you skin cancer. So in South Africa, for example, it is not good to be in the sun between about 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. If you stay in the sun for long periods of time during that time, your risks of skin cancer go up. But in order to get enough vitamin D, you have to spend at least an hour in the sun before 10 a.m. or after 3 p.m. on a sunny day here in South Africa. So unless you work regularly in the sun and you are out and about in the sun, you probably will not get enough vitamin D. Now you can go to a health shop and get vitamin D tablets, but the actual amount of vitamin D you get will still not be enough. And there seems to be a trend nowadays here in South Africa for doctors to prescribe vitamin D to patients. And this is how I got my vitamin D. The guy gave me some tablets, and they were very cheap actually. And he'd give me 40 tablets, and I take one tablet every 10 days, and it loads me up with more than enough vitamin D. And I've got to tell you, vitamin D is magic. Apparently, in the last 15 to 20 years, it's been studied extremely heavily, and they regard it almost as a wonder drug. And they've been digging into it in all sorts of ways. Now, this doctor of mine, he wanted to do certain research, and he wanted to team up with somebody elsewhere in the world so that they could do more studies on vitamin D, because he had specific things he wanted to dig into. Then, when I told my GP, my normal doctor, that I have got vitamin D, he also told me that if I feel that I'm starting to get ill, and knowing the dosage I was getting, and I've got to tell you, the dosage I get is many, many times higher than what you'd get in a health shop. That's why you have to go to a doctor. The doctor will know what to give you and how much you can take. So my GP told me if I ever feel that I'm starting to get ill, knowing my dosage, he said to me, instead of taking one tablet every 10 days, if I feel I'm starting to get ill, take one tablet every day for 3 days and see if that can't stop the illness completely, and that'll prevent a doctor's visit. I've been using vitamin D for about 3 years now, and I've got to tell you, it's magic. This thing has helped me massively. And it seems to be an area in which they are doing a lot of research, and they're making all sorts of progress, and we've not seen the end of what vitamin D is. Now, vitamin D is not actually a vitamin, it's a hormone, and you only get 10% of it from your food. And the other key thing about vitamin D that's important is that vitamin D basically controls and builds your immune system. So it builds your entire immune system up, and this is what gives you resistance to all kinds of things. So strengthening your immune system is what vitamin D is all about, and that's why it can be so exceptionally helpful to you. My entire life I've suffered from allergies, and probably more than 20 years ago I went to a Boer doctor I had at the time, a very lively guy who was interested in everything. He was the only GP I knew who also did surgery. He also did hypnotism and all sorts of things. He was very lively, very interested in life, and he had all sorts of ideas of his own as well. That Boer doctor actually had a theory of his own. And I don't know how valid this is, because I've never heard anyone else whom I've spoken to say a similar thing. He actually did not believe that allergies were a bad thing at all, that they were actually a sign of what he called an overactive immune system. an immune system that's attacking things that it shouldn't do. And he thought that there were many benefits to it, and that you didn't want to totally desensitize yourself, but you just needed to repress it a little bit. And he was the first guy to take action against my allergies, and in the beginning I went to him for weekly allergy injections. And I must tell you, I was not keen on the idea of going for weekly injections. But after I'd experienced the first benefits of this, I was a total convert. And afterwards, sadly, this guy left South Africa and he went off to the UK. So I struggled to find other allergy specialists. One of the ones I ended up with later was supposedly a Jewess who'd been a top allergy specialist at a hospital. And I will tell you that she was absolutely useless. All I did was spend my money, get stuff from her, and it made absolutely no difference whatsoever. And another time I went and had allergy tests, where they take a blood test and they test you for about 100 different allergies. That was also sort of useful, but I didn't really get much use out of it. The reason I'm mentioning these things is just to give you some background that I've been aware of my allergies for a long time, and the locally manufactured injections that this Boer doctor gave me were actually pretty useful. Then I went through a period of going to other allergy specialists or people claiming to be allergy specialists, and they were absolutely useless. And they all conducted different tests, and they kept telling me what I already knew. Then one day, after I had got to know this German guy who'd saved my life, and I'd started to get a real respect for the quality of his work, I went to him one day and I said to him, every morning I wake up with a sore throat. Every day. What can possibly be the problem? And he had a look at me and he said he'd send me for some blood tests. So I went for some blood tests. And this is after I'd been to all these other allergy specialists for years. So the blood test results came back. And the German guy said to me, I think you have a wheat allergy. Now, until that time in my life, I'd thought that milk and wheat allergies were the stuff of science fiction, that to have a wheat or a milk allergy is like seeing a UFO, that it's really just a load of bunk. My one family member's children, she often says to me, oh, this child has got a tremendous allergy to milk. And I'd think, no, man, you're crazy. I've never heard of anything like that. I've never heard of milk allergies and wheat allergies. Are you nuts? So this German guy says to me, you have a wheat allergy. So I said to him, this can't be. Are you telling me that wheat can affect my nasal passages and give me sore throats and stuff? And he said, yes. Now remember, this guy wasn't even putting me through any computerized allergy tests or anything. He just had somebody do a blood test, a normal blood test by laboratory, and he looked at the results. And he takes a look at these results and he says to me, I think you've got a wheat allergy. So that shows you some real analysis there. This guy didn't even have any fancy tools. And here he's saying to me, you have a wheat allergy. I said to him, this can't be. So he suggested an experiment. He said to me, for a month, eat nothing that has got wheat in it. Do that for a month, and then see how you feel. It actually took me several months to try and figure out a diet that didn't have wheat in it, because almost 80% of the food you eat has got wheat in it in one way or another, at least here in South Africa. So I had to find a bread that didn't have wheat in it, And I found that everything has got wheat in it. Almost everything you can imagine that's manufactured. So after I managed to get the wheat out of my diet, and I'd done so for a while, I then decided to start taking something that had wheat. And I really like hot cross buns. If you ever want to poison me, just put the poison in a hot cross bun. I'll eat it gladly. And I bought some hot cross buns and I ate them. And I then felt quite rotten. And I was quite astounded at how that affected me. Of course, it doesn't mean that I don't eat cake, I don't eat biscuits, I don't eat other things. But just that normally in my daily diet, I cut these things out. I have lots of cake when I want cake and other things because I know that it will affect me for a day or so. But 95% of the time, I have a wheat-free diet. And I thought that this wheat stuff and milk stuff, that these are stupid things. In fact, they are very real things, and I was surprised at how wheat affected me. But this whole wheat and allergy thing probably applies to me and doesn't really apply to you. But I'm mentioning it just in an offhand way, that there may be even allergies that you might have that you don't even know you have, and they've actually made your entire life unpleasant just because you didn't know about them. And in this discussion I'm having with you now, we are talking more about long-term issues rather than short-term issues, as you'll see. So there are a couple of thoughts on allergies. Of course, you don't need to have injections for allergies. Nowadays, they just make a little capsule that you just stick under your tongue for a few seconds, and you can take that daily and off you go. They've got very nice ways of dealing with these things. But now for a shocker, and this is quite a recent thing I discovered. Every year I go for my annual checkup, and I have a pretty thorough checkup, and for my age I'm well above average in terms of health. The joke is that at my age, I'm actually healthier than I was 10 years ago. I'm healthier than I was 20 years ago. I'm healthier than I was when I was in my 20s or even when I was a teen. I was sick quite often and so forth. Nowadays, I'm hardly ever sick. While I'm at this, I should mention something else. That very lively Boer doctor that I had, he told me another interesting thing. He was a very fit guy himself. He told me an interesting thing the one day. He said to me that they have done experiments where they've taken old men, really old men, and they've made them do weight training. They've taken old men who are in their 60s and 70s. Of course, they've checked them and seen that, yes, their hearts weren't given and so forth from this training. But then they've picked these guys and they've made them do very heavy weight training. And he told me that the results of this was absolutely astounding. These old guys doing weights, it changed them so much for the better. It had all kinds of health benefits. Unfortunately, this discussion was a very long time ago, so I can't tell you more than that. It's probably something you need to look at. In some of my history studies, I've mentioned the Romans, and I still want to show you some video to show you how strong, how physically strong a Roman man was. You will not believe how strong the average Roman soldier was. And I will still give you examples of this. Your jaws will hang open when you hear how strong these guys were. It's something that doesn't normally come through. But as I've been digging into history, it's become more and more obvious. And these guys used to march long distances. At the end of the day, they even built a fort. Every day the Roman soldiers would stop and they'd cut down trees and they'd build a fort and they'd sleep in a little fort every night when they were on campaign. That's just some of what they did. You have no idea how strong these guys were. I'll still show you. And the Romans also weren't big men, but they were unbelievably strong. And they did military service for long. I think sometimes they even did military service for 25 years at a time. And there is a record of a centurion who was in his 80s. I'm not sure if he was 82 or 84, and he was still on active duty. When I was younger, my parents and other, quotes, old people used to think that as you get older, so you must take it more easy. But it appears to me that science and history shows the opposite, that as you get older, you can actually improve your health, and if you exercise right and you eat right, you can change your lifestyle completely, and you can probably add a decade or two or more to your life. Tesla, the scientific genius, who probably could have been a trillionaire from all his inventions if he'd been inclined that way, he said once that he expects to live to 150. He didn't live to 150, but he did live to quite an old age before he died. And it may be possible that with science and just applying some logic and discipline, that we can extend our lives to 80, 90, 100 as almost commonplace, that reaching 100 might actually be almost the norm. And a lot of it has to do with just personal discipline, and a lot of it is about what you eat and your exercise. But you don't even have to exercise and be in a gym every day in order to get some benefits. There are also exercises I discovered now in my older age that for men there are short, sharp exercises you can do that will build up your testosterone levels and stuff like that, which is very important. My point in a nutshell is that if you take active control of your health and you take some action, there are things you can do that will improve your life and make you feel a lot better, and you will be more energetic and you will live longer. But you need to take an active interest in your health, and you have to go and consult a doctor and get some proper advice. So in recent years, I've started going for annual checkups, and the results have been very good for my age. But one topic started coming up, and my doctor would say to me, the only thing in your blood tests that's a bit problematic is a certain thing. And then he said to me, you need to look at getting rid of fizzy drinks. He said, this is about too much sugar. But he'd not been the first doctor to raise the issue of sugar with me. Another one that I'd spoken to about sugar, he said, all sugar is bad. Because I said to him, does it matter if I take white sugar or brown sugar? And he said, it doesn't matter which sugar you take, it's all bad for you. But I didn't understand, why are these doctors saying that sugar is bad? What is it about sugar that's the problem? And it only hit me one day when my one doctor referred me to a website, and he said, go to this health website, it's a very good website. Unfortunately now I've forgotten the name of the website. But it was a website run by an American doctor. And when I was browsing through this website, I noticed in one of his articles, he said the following: cancer loves sugar. And that was the first time in my life that I wondered whether cancer and sugar are related. So I chatted to my pal who does bodybuilding and who reads a lot of scientific literature. And he said to me, yes, it's true that it is sugar that is the driving force behind cancer. So never before in my life had I heard of this connection between sugar and cancer. But everybody knows that cancer has been on the increase worldwide for decades now, and the question is why? Well, maybe the answer is staring us right in the face. So according to the Canadian Cancer Society, the average man can take up to 9 teaspoonfuls of sugar a day, and that's fine. And the average woman can take up to 6 teaspoonfuls of sugar a day. The problem is you mustn't cut sugar out of your diet. Your body needs sugar. The problem is we've got so many foods and drinks that have got very high levels of sugar in them. That is actually the issue. And in discussing diets with this bodybuilding friend of mine, he said to me that even going on a all-fruit diet, for example, is not recommended by scientists because fruit has got too much sugar in it. So yes, you must have fruit, and fruit is healthy, but you can't live only off fruit. And he too was emphasizing that in the scientific stuff he'd read, the thing that the scientists are concerned about is sugar. So it seems as if scientifically there is a lot of knowledge and evidence that sugar and cancer are related. Now, to protect yourself from cancer, from my doctor as well as from another friend who's very health conscious, he's 70 and I've got to tell you, he's fitter than a 20-year-old. He'll snap a 20-year-old's neck off with no problem. And then I started hearing about lemon, and lemon being one of the best antioxidants that there is. My doctor said to me, the way you must take lemon, and the way he takes lemon every day, is he puts it through a blender, and the most important part of the lemon is the skin. So you have to get the lemon liquidized, and you take it daily. I'm not sure how much you must take daily, but he said to me every morning he has at least half of an entire lemon every morning. So lemon is extremely high in vitamin C. It's got the most vitamin C, I think, of any fruit. But lemon, you should eat whole. And this one old friend of mine said to me, whenever he's at a cafe and they give you some lemon with some of the things that you have ordered, he eats that entire quarter lemon there and then. But I suspect that you may need more than that. And the other interesting thing is blueberries. My doctor said to me that if you take your lemon properly and you also eat blueberries regularly, that between those two things together, you should almost never get sick. So interestingly, as I started shopping for these things, and you must know in South Africa, many of these things are not easily available, I was very surprised when I eventually found sources for these, and I was very surprised at how many other people are also getting these items. Just returning to vitamin D, I just want to read a bit for you from a website called www.yourhormones.info. It says, vitamin D is actually a hormone rather than a vitamin. The body makes most of the vitamin D it needs. Only about 10% comes from our food. The action of sunlight on our skin produces a substance called cholecalciferol, which is converted by the liver into calcidiol. And the tablets the doctors prescribe is calciferol. So these are just some rough thoughts from things that I've come across, and it may give you some food for thought and you may dash off and dig around yourself. But to me it seemed as if there's quite a lot of scientific knowledge, especially about the causes of cancer, but somehow it doesn't get maybe the publicity it should get. Maybe it would work against the interests of many businesses, and that's why you don't get to hear about it. So it may be good to go and speak to a health professional and get more detailed info on it and whether any of this could be of use to you. But speaking from experience, I tell you, I'm an absolute convert to vitamin D. Absolute convert. So that's just some food for thought for you, and maybe it will trigger some thoughts and interest, and maybe you'll find out more. There are also hoaxes. There are also hoaxes that the pips of certain fruits are antioxidants and so forth. So don't take everything seriously that just everyone tells you. You'll need to do a bit of study to find out which of this is actually scientifically proven. The things I've tried to mention to you are ones that are scientifically proven. Lots of other people just come and talk all kinds of nonsense, and you just need to sort out and just do a bit of proper study to make sure that what you're doing is actually going to work, and that it's not a hoax intended for you to buy rubbish which will be of no use to you at all. There is a lot of that sort of stuff that seems to be happening in the world. And in the case of eating things and these sugar and other related things, I look on it a lot like smoking. You can smoke a lot and nothing will happen to you. But if you smoke for 30 years, then it's going to hit you. And that's really the bottom line when it comes to eating. There's nothing stopping you from having some fun, having drinks, but it's the things you do every day that you do 95% of the time that you need to just be careful of. Interestingly enough, in the ancient skeletons that they've picked up of people and all the various remains that they've studied, they found that there was a time in Europe when people were hunting, and the people who were living there were mainly hunters. And when they looked at their skeletons and their bodies, they said that these were among the healthiest people they'd ever come across, because these people were active, they were fit, and they were doing healthy things. And then along came agriculture, and the main thing was wheat. And what wheat did, and how wheat strengthened civilization, was that wheat allowed large numbers of people to live. So yes, in the days of the hunters, people were super fit, and they were extremely healthy. But their population density was so low that when agricultural societies arose, they could sustain so many more people. Their physical population numbers were so great that they were able to drive out the hunters simply because they outnumbered them. So in actual fact, you had people who were less healthy, but there were lots more of them. And they were able to drive out the hunters, and they became the colonists. So that's an interesting thing about history to sit and ponder. But these topics of numbers of people and all the issues surrounding them, those are topics that we'll have to deal with in a more detailed way when we study other clashes between nations and races, because it becomes a very interesting topic, this thing of quality versus quantity, and what types of quality versus what types of quantity. And it becomes very interesting because we're looking at a clash of races and a clash of civilizations and a clash of styles. But this is, in fact, the story of history. It is all about these kinds of things. But getting down to the detail, you need the detail in order to make sense of it. You mustn't just do things at a very high level, just very skimpy thinking. Bad thinking does not lead to correct results. So that's it for now. Very shortly you will get a new video and we'll be back onto our normal topics. But I thought I'd just throw these things at you. Vitamin D, and does sugar equal cancer? Thank you very much for listening. We'll be chatting again very soon.